Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fourth group call for Tarot for Creative Magic. I'm excited to be with some of our group members live, and we have another one coming in now. And hello to anyone who may be watching this in the future as a recording. Hello, Monica. Well, her audio is still connecting. See, there she is. Hi, Monica. Welcome. All right. I wanted to give us a little time and space to kind of arrive here. It's evening time for most of us. So just want to invite everyone to take a minute, close your eyes, perhaps settle into your chair, your seat. Start noticing your breath, first of all. Maybe how it naturally was as you began to notice it. And then maybe creating a breath that's slow and steady, bringing in some fresh air to the body with intention, and releasing it through like a straw, like you're blowing out through a straw. We'll do that 2 more times with a big inhale, nice and slow. Pause for just a moment and then release with that same straw breath. One more time, nice long inhale, all the way to the top of the breath, holding it for just a moment and releasing through that straw. And just take a moment to check in with yourself, thinking about the day that you've had, the many movements of your day, the different phases, anything residual in your body from what you've been working on or thinking about or concerned with. Just noticing how that's present in your body. And if there's anything that feels heavier, like you're tired of carrying it, like it's weighing on you, like it's creating any chaotic energy in the body, just kind of notice where that is and maybe imagine it coming out of your body as a kind of energy or an object. Just let it hover there for a moment. And bring to mind a container where you can place this energy. Maybe a simple cardboard box, maybe a hole in the ground, maybe a beautiful vase on a shelf, some container where you can place this concern, this heaviness, this responsibility, just for a while, at least for a while, if not longer. Just know that it's safe and kept there, and come back to the body, maybe looking for any open space that's been created. Bringing a little breath into that space. And bringing to mind something lovely, pleasurable, nice from your day. A moment of joy, appreciation, a loving feeling. Just kind of connect with that. Use your breath to spread it throughout the body, making it bigger. And it feels nice and full, kind of settled in you or around you. You can begin to make your way back into your present space. Maybe wiggle your fingers, move your toes. Yeah, circle, stretch your neck, roll your shoulders. You look around your space and just notice what's here. Twisting a little bit. Maybe reaching a little bit. Yes, yawning a little bit. All right. I thought I might pull a card just to kind of set the space and see if there's a message here, but also maybe an experiment. It'll be interesting perhaps at the end of the call to see if we've moved through any themes with this card. Yes, perhaps. The 10 of Wands is our card for now. Yeah, this is a card of carrying a lot of energy, carrying a lot of responsibility, carrying often more than our share or more than our capacity will really allow. This person is crouching while holding all of these wands. There's so many, they create a visual barrier in front of the person. I know we're consuming or thinking about or even truly worried, and our hearts are heavy about a lot that's going on in the world, in addition to what's happening in our lives. So you can see that as relevant. But I want to open the floor for support. And so these calls, as you know, some of you have been before, this is a space where you can ask questions, you can celebrate some good news, you can talk about a challenge or a place where you're feeling stuck. Sometimes we're just stuck in the journaling process, and that's a great thing to explore as well. And then I just invite everyone to also share support for others, whether that's a little comment in the chat or a reaction on your screen, or we'll also make time for people to chime in and offer support verbally, of course, too. So you can alert me that you have something to share. Pardon my shaky voice. I think I'm kind of trying to hold off a cold. So yeah, use your hand raising button. There's Monica, or you can raise your actual hand. But Monica, you are up.
I wanted to share that for the past couple months, and particularly the last month, I was trying to submit an application for our startup to the Y Combinator winter cohort, which was due on the 13th. And throughout the entire time, I was journaling the whole process and how difficult it was. But I feel really proud of what we did. I think the hardest part about being an entrepreneur is, and especially since I have two other co-founders, they have partners and I'm single. So after I had submitted the application, and it was grueling. I mean, it was really, really hard to stand up a company in a month. I took myself to ski shores for like my celebratory onion rings. And it's like so unglamorous, you know? We're fighting for close to $500,000 and I'm at ski shores eating onion rings. Anyway, going through the whole process and, you know, pulling cards every morning just for a bit of guidance and motivation and inspiration. I'm just really glad that I have a practice like that to be able to do hard things. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Congratulations on getting to the finish line of that process. And I think so ski shores, if you don't live in Austin and if you haven't been there, it's a little restaurant on Austin's on the Colorado River and there's a few dams. So there's actually like 3 lakes along the way. And then Ski Shores is on Lake Austin, or what are we still calling it, Lake Austin? No, yeah, it's Lake Austin. Which is where they can have boats and things like that. So boats can pull up and you can get burgers, you can get onion rings. You can drive up too. It's kind of a nice drive through the hills. So I love Ski Shores. That was one of my favorite places for a little while. And I'm glad you treated yourself. Monica, is there a way that you would like to be celebrated in this space?
I think being able to just share like what a lonely process it is. I mean, I know it comes across as super glamorous a lot of times when you're doing stuff like Y Combinator or a startup, and it is hard. It's just really, really hard, more than anything else. It's my second company that I'm starting in the software tech.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm gonna wave my hands. I'm gonna celebrate you like this. I don't have a good playlist to play for you right now, but that's a mini dance party for you. And what I'm hearing also makes me want to acknowledge that, having a partner in life or having someone around who's like, we go through phases where we may be partnered and we may not be, but it can make life easier in a lot of ways when you're dividing labor and responsibility. And so I think it's nice to just acknowledge that, we can do amazing, wonderful things on our own and have big lives of like freedom and full choice and adventure. But sometimes it is harder to bear the burdens of like capitalism and survival and all of that. So I think that's worth naming as well. Is anyone here care to kind of share in response to Monica or offer anything else?
Well, when I hear that it's software tech that your company is in, and then I hear of you pulling a card every day, and having such a dedicated practice, there's just something about the fact that those two things live simultaneously in you, that I'm enjoying. That, it's like you wouldn't necessarily expect somebody in software tech to be in this and pulling a card every day. And yeah, I'm just kind of like appreciating even just that. Yeah, to kind of like be reminded of like, yeah, we're all full of um multiplicities, I guess. And even like who I think of in software tech, that like my idea of that might be limited. So yeah.
More tech witches and fewer tech bros, maybe a wish for the future. I do think it's super wonderful, Monica, that you stuck with that ritual, and even in a really demanding moment or phase that you really held it down with like things that support you and keep you centered. So extra celebration there. Anyone else have questions, celebrations, conundrums?
I have a reflection as I'm kind of getting ready to to submit myself for the first session, because I've definitely done uh more than 10 prompts now, but it's been interesting that just moving towards like filling out your Google form has been the delay.
Mm.
Um, Partly because, you ask pointed questions, and you ask like for real reflections. And so today I did have some time where I started reading through my entries, and it surprised me how long it took. I'm still not done. Um, and but that's kind of a good thing also. I think even that, to kind of be like, oh, I did this. I wrote all this. That takes me longer than an hour to read. And then yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just appreciating the process, and especially the fact that it's picked up for me lately with the sessions that you've been offering. And so it's felt pretty cool to have this to look upon, and like to hear my own voice, saying wise, maybe even prophetic things sometimes, like in it. And I'm just like, okay, okay, I'm trusting um more, or I'm trusting this process, I guess, more. And I think feeling some kind of like, okay, maybe I can kind of like do it pretty devotedly, you know, um, until December 9th. And I appreciate even like the markers that you set up. So like 40 feels like doable. So that's like what I'm reaching for now. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on picking, getting back in the groove. And it's really been wonderful to see you in many of those sessions and see any and all who've attended. I really want to continue those so that more people can kind of gather a little more momentum. It feels really good to do it with other people. Like that's been my experience. And it just gives it like a little extra satisfaction, I think, by the end of the session. And I appreciate you taking like due diligence with the form. I want to caveat it a little bit just for anyone who hasn't seen the form yet. It's not that crazy. It's not that hard. You didn't say it was hard. And you can answer, simply. But it sounds like you're really being deeply thoughtful about it. And I appreciate that. And I think it's good, like you're saying, to think through the question and kind of, they're meant to help you identify what's on your mind or what's on your heart or what you really want to explore, partly so we can use the time really well and I can support you really well. But I think just going through that process of like clarifying and thinking about what you want to be focused on is a great practice. So yeah, I'm really glad you're going there and you've been going there with the journaling prompts. I'm excited for that moment when you get to 40. That's going to be a big deal. That was a very cute face you made in response to that, Ivona. Any thoughts for Ivona? Any comments or reflections?
I shared a similar experience, I think, with the form because I had filled out the prompts and then I said, "Oh, there's a lot of questions." I was like, "Yeah, okay, well then, yeah, I I would say there was a little bit of a delay from when but yeah, yeah, you'll get through the hump. It's okay." Yeah.
That's good feedback for me too. I will take another look at the form for next time and see if it can be
Well,
more.
yeah, and I think part of it is just because this is my first experience with tarot and like having a reading or having something to even discuss regarding this. So I wasn't sure how deep or how reflective I should be. And I was like, should I give you more information? I don't know. So and I think that part is just me overthinking it instead of just like let me just write out what it feels like at the moment and then just submit it and see where that goes, right? I think I could have done it either way. But I I think I chose to let it be a little bit more of a delay. Like I think I was more in my own mind going, oh, am I ready for this? Yeah. So but and I mean I think the questions are good. They're good questions. They get me thinking about what I was just writing about. Right? Like I think just even asking, oh, which one of the cards, or if there was more than one card, what was it that was like really good? And I was like, oh, well, and initially I think every card I was doing was really good. And then I said, well, maybe I should look back and reflect and reread what I wrote. Yeah, so it's not something that I would answer in 5 minutes, but it's definitely something that helps me think. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. One let's see, the ticket to get through the gate to the first session is only doing the 10 props and filling out the form. So like there's no evaluation of the form in terms of whether you're actually really ready for a session. You're just gonna get it. So yeah, I appreciate your thoughtfulness, both of you. And sometimes people fill out the form a little more simply, and that's fine too. So it's also interesting, like what comes up for you when you get a form like this. And it's like, what do I want to say? But there is a little bit of that element of inviting you to reflect, like what's been going on so far. And I think that's a good process periodically to kind of look not only just at like the tarot cards you've gotten in whatever succession, if you've been doing it randomly, but also kind of, themes that have come up, or where the breakthroughs felt like they were, whatever the case, or where the challenges and the difficulty may have felt strongest. So,
Yeah, I wanted to say I actually figured out, like what I want to focus on in our session, but I think part of it is also still wanting to understand where I've been with this, and kind of like, okay, I understand everything that I've like gained now, because you're not going to go back and like read all my entries to be like, oh, that's interesting there, and that connects to this here. And so I guess I'm just like, I feel responsible for doing that for myself, because I want to uh kind of like make the most of what there is. And as I'm talking through this right now, I'm just thinking, yeah, like it's such a thin line between you know I don't know, something like striving for excellence or like devotion, and perfectionism. you know and that definitely is something that I know and still shows up for me. So I think as I'm talking about it now, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not sure exactly where the line is sometimes, and then also how, yeah, procrastination and delay sneaks in until I can do it right, whatever my idea of right is. And I will say that the sessions that you've been offering have been helping also with breaking through some of that, because it's like, if you offer a session and I choose to kind of come, it's like, okay, I'm going to do it now, versus yeah, the tendency to still kind of like, well, can I have the good conditions, and putting it off until that's kind of more the case.
yeah, I like that. That kind of spectrum you're pointing out between, where it's like excellence, perfectionism, or I guess it's like perfectionism at the very extreme, and then there's like excellence somewhere nearby, and then there's like devotion, which may be like a phrase that came up for me around what you were saying, is like, I guess, like respect for the process, or honoring your own experience. Like, how do you want to get the most out of this, or how do you want to like really make it valuable for you? And so yeah, it's not, it's not like we get a clear answer every time, like, oh, this is perfection. Because you can also, like, a little part of you can be like, let's get it perfect. And a bigger part of you can be like, let's respect the process, or let me like show up as fully as I can for this in this moment, which is not the same as getting it perfect. And then you also pointed out another spectrum of like, that seem to have perfectionism on it, but then also like the avoidance part, like how you maybe put something off. You can put something off a little bit because it's just like you don't have the energy for it at the moment, or it's not coming out of you as easily, or it's not the right time for whatever reason. Or there's like putting it off because you're like, I don't like this, and like, I don't know what to say, or like, I can't get this right. And sometimes both can be happening too. So I just want to honor the fact that it's muddled. It can be very muddled sometimes, like how to discern one from the other. But I also want to point out that both can be happening both can be alive in the moment, and that's okay. But it's just kind of, in the session today, I was journaling to the King of Swords prompt, which is about like speaking your truth. And there's some like, I didn't really journal about any proud moments around this, but I just know that in my own journey, I've gotten a lot better at that, whatever that is, speaking your truth, like, expressing yourself honestly. Not perfect, obviously, but just like way better than I used to be, which was not very good at it, very scared of it. And so, but I also noticed that I just had a lot of questions with myself, like, is just waiting for a good time to share a truth avoidance, or is it conscientiousness? Like, am I budgeting my energy, or am I afraid? Right. And sometimes both might be happening. But it was just interesting to see, like, when it came to truth, there were just a lot of questions that I was still having about that. So I appreciate you. Yeah, Ivona saying in the chat, discernment is another word that's coming to mind. And sometimes it's just a matter of like acknowledging, like, oh yeah, I do sense a little bit of this and a little bit of that too. And it's not necessarily about taking ourselves all the way to one and getting rid of the other, but just like creating a little bit more awareness as we navigate things, so we can kind of feel what's there and make some choices, or let the fear like rule sometimes. Sometimes that's what we need to do if we don't feel safe. So yeah, really great thoughts. Mary.
Yeah, so this process is very similar. I think I mentioned this to you earlier. So I've started to learn how to sew, and I'm only on my second lesson, and I'm really bad at straight lines, but I'm really good at the swirly patterns. And so it was something that is really unusual for sewing, because most people love to do the straight lines. And I just feel like for me, this journaling process has also opened up the fact that I really love abstract ideas. The prompts that I really loved were the ones that I could kind of draw or do things a little bit differently, but I love the structure and the container of these calls and having those journaling sessions. I feel like I still need that logical push, but to be able to have the guidelines to kind of move as I go throughout it has been really helpful. And I feel like for me, just in everyday life, that I am an abstract patterns, big ideas person, but it helps to have those containers to be able to put that to use. So that's just an observation I've had, both from, starting that and starting this and kind of figuring out more of myself. And I think that that was a big surprise to me, because growing up, I was definitely an overachiever, wanting to do things for other people their way, and then kind of understanding that that's not really me and that's not what I enjoy, and trying to figure out things that I'm good at, as far as what makes me happy and brings me joy, that isn't what someone else has told me that I'm good at or whatnot. So both of those things have been kind of eye-opening. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that's just kind of my observations that I've had.
Yeah, I love that. And want to celebrate you doing sewing lessons. I think that's I know you've been like concerned, like you have an interest in like the environmental sustainability of like clothing, and now you're really like giving yourself a learning opportunity to maybe apply conservation practices in your own life, or like who knows what else you can do or may want to do when you like learn more about sewing. But how beautiful that in the process you find, I think creative like undertakings are so great for this, because they also show us like where we get uncomfortable. For anyone who came to the drawing as creative play class, there were lots of like exercises that really push some people's buttons, and like because it was supposed to be messy, it was supposed to be fast, it was like and for those of us who really want to get things right, it was like there was a moment where I was like, I just want to throw up. Like, I hate this. There were other activities that I was like, okay, this is working, you know, but you really get to see your comfort zone around some of that. So I think it's really cool that with a sewing machine, you're finding that you like to like veer around, and that becomes a metaphor for the way you want to do things now and the way that you used to do things, and how that felt to you to try to like keep the straight lines was kind of, you know, a way of like not fully honoring yourself, or kind of getting lost in other people maybe. So there's just like really beautiful connections that you're making in all of this, Mary, and I like you pointing out that I think a lot of us really want that wild freedom and places to roam and like play around with big ideas and not really know, but we also, it serves us to have like a container somehow for that stuff, so we don't feel like we're getting lost and floating away, far, far away. Like we have a place to bring it back to. So I just think you named that really, really beautifully. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And Monica, I saw your hand up. I don't know if you wanted to respond to Mary there.
I did. I'm thrilled that you're sewing. I used to make quilts because I was so poor at one point. I would give quilts as like presents because I could get really cheap cloth, and I used to love the straight lines. Capricorn. But I kind of wanted to show you something that kind of made me remind me of what you're doing. So a friend of mine, her name is Jupiter Girl, and she has created these skirts just from t-shirts, and she just kind of pieces them all together. And they're pretty magnificent. And so I just keep like saving all my t-shirts. And so they're like layered, and they have like little graphics on them, and see how they're just kind of sewn at the top. And I'm gonna tell you, she sells these for $195 each, and she sells out constantly just because they're so beautiful. But I bet you if she had the swirly lines on there too. I noticed that they're all pretty straight except for the X's where they're like hand. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of, in case that might be a thing. But yay, it's like a meditation. I love sewing, and how wonderful.
I mean, that's the dream, to upcycle clothes, but I'm just trying to tell myself if I even know how to repair them, that's enough. And then if I like it beyond that point, that's even better. But that's beautiful. Those skirts are amazing.
Happy to show you them. And oh, I don't even know. Are you in Austin?
I am, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to show them to you because I was like, if somebody else could make these more locally, she's in Northampton. It's like, I'm going to give you a bunch of t-shirts.
Very cool. Thank you for that inspiration. I saw Christy's face when you said they were $195. She's like, what? I think in an exciting way, like, oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, good for her. Like, holy cow.
They're so worth it. They're just so beautiful. And yeah, t-shirts. You have so many, and you don't want to throw them away because some of them are really cool.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm struck by is that they're now like unique pieces, right? That's what's different, you know, from other. Yeah, it's like there's only one that is this combination. Yeah.
Violetta.
So I wanted to share a reflection of I'm close to 20 prompts now, and from the beginning, which I officially started in May, to now, I guess there was a little bit of a lag of me and my creativity, which is part of the reason why I signed up for this. And I was slowly getting back into this, and I am realizing that I've led a pretty creative life, like just reflecting on a lot of the prompts. But now, because I'm physically writing things down and thinking things through, it has now led me to go back and like pick up things where I left off. So one of the things that I have plenty of these different kinds of notebooks, but like some of my notebooks have my experiments of when I do deal with like natural dyes and stuff. And I write down things, what I used to do with the papers, how I got the certain colors and things like that, right? So the last time I touched this was over 2 years ago. I was like trying to figure out what to do next, and I kind of like lost momentum. But about 2 weeks ago, I went ahead and just picked that right back up and decided to make some avocado ink and acorn ink. Yay!
Wow.
So yeah, so I have another batch of acorns soaking and cooking and whatnot right now this week, and plan to bottle that up and I don't know, go from there. But it's interesting to restart back the process and know that it was there all along. Like, it's kind of like it ebbs and flows. There's cycles to things, and it's really nice that I was doing the prompt for Two of Wands this week. And in that particular prompt, it talks about like what kind of processes or approaches that help you kind of like come back. And I have like thought about what it is that kind of got me into certain directions. And one of the things I listed now was pulling a card and like, oh, let's see where this goes and where this leads. Yeah, so I just wanted to reflect on that. Yay.
Yay.
Violetta, if you could somehow share your recipe for making the inks, that would be great. I do eco printing, like
Yeah.
where I dye fabrics and papers and I've used avocado pits, but I haven't made ink. So
Yeah,
that's
so
cool.
there was a creative, like it was called Making Zen. It was hosted by some a group of Canadian artists that did free workshops for a week. And they invited a ton of different artists, and one of them happens to be a natural dyer from Canada. And she did a 20-minute presentation about it, and it was online. And I was like, okay, let me try it. And she used acorns, and I was like, wait a second, I have never heard of people using acorns. I've always heard oat galls, and I've heard walnut husks. I'm like, I don't have walnuts around here either. I was like, but acorns they're all over the place. And so yeah, I was picking them up and started sorting them. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's actually quite a variety of acorns around here, and seeing what kind of ink comes out. But yeah, yeah, there's a lot of, I didn't realize how much information was out there. And she talks a little bit about how to maybe prevent mold growth. Like she does recommend that you refrigerate it. But yeah, I can post that totally in Slack and let you know. I can even give you some other stuff about what I do for dyeing papers. I do brush dyeing. We've done that as well. And there's a quote unquote recipe for that. That's not necessarily, you kind of play with it a little bit, but yeah, and hence why the experimental notebook here with, because you can't really duplicate things that you've kind of done in the past, but you can sort of get yourself going in that direction. So yeah.
Well, that is super cool and inspiring. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love that people are like sewing is coming into the mix and making natural dyes and papers and like things that I know zero about. And creativity is a vast universe, and there's like so many ways that we can express that and play around with that and explore that. And there's all kinds of like weird modality. I mean, none of these are weird, but they're just like, I think we get really like writing, film, dance, TV, what some other like theater, whatever, music. But there's like so many options and possibilities. And I think it's really beautiful, Violetta, that you're coming back to something that has been inside you for a while, something that you used to do, and revisiting that. And I just think it's great that, or I'm really excited to hear that like the process of journaling and maybe letting things be like messy or open-ended or kind of like halting and then getting momentum again somehow means there's more permission to pick up old things and bring new life into them. So that's just magnificent, and I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. And I think you and I had a talk during our 10 prompt session. We had a little bit of a discussion because I've been not focused, but I would say I've been definitely going back and forth a lot with tapping into ancestry stuff. And that, that's just because my mom passed away this year, and just there's just questions that are naturally coming up with this. And I know you had mentioned, oh, maybe something you can look into is things that were maybe used in the past or something like that, right? And so what's really interesting is that there was a book someone published, and it's on natural dyes, and it's based on region. And so she has one specifically, like where my mom's from Mexico, so she has one chapter specifically about Mexico and dyes that were used there and derived from there. And I was like, oh, these are the things that I think I want to be working with. So it was like, there was a different call to that. And yeah, and there was just the stuff reading about this, there was just something that was naturally tying me to it. And wanting me to explore a little bit more there. Granted, acorns, that's everywhere, but not to say that it's not in Mexico. But I guess what I'm getting at is like, oh yeah, this is sort of kind of helping me get the gears going and seeing where this takes me. But yeah, Christy, did you want to say something else?
Well, I was just going to share, because Mary was talking about the sewing, that so like you were saying, like it's like takes you down this path and down this path. And so, I dabbled it, like I've made pottery and sewing and mixed media and collaging and blah, 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 and dyeing. And then, like, what do you do with it? And I always come back. I love books and I love to read, and I love to write. And so I've been doing more writing with Cecily. And so like this is a journal I made with sewing, and there's like no straight lines. So a lot of free motion and like free motion sewing to create little things. And so this is a journal I've been using. And then my tarot journal that I made for this class, which has a bunch of, but I like pressed a flower and then did some eco printed like cover. So, and it's just an old book. I got it like a thrift store. So it's super fun to kind of hear what other people are doing and then trying these little things and then like letting it meld together. It's a lot of fun.
I'd like to post a video in the chat then in Slack about book artists. It's a really small little introduction about it, but like they really want to transform what a book can be, or what materials it can be made out of. And that's what I see with like making these colors or making paper and playing around with the translucency of paper, making it thinner or thicker or whatever to get some effect that I want. And that helps me like translate a different story than just saying, oh, I'm just going to open a book and do it this way, right? Yeah, so that's definitely something I've been playing around with. But I want to post this because it's so good. There's this one where the book it uses an accordion, but when you splay it out, it splays out like ribs, but it's the map of this one person and how she lived. And I was like, wow, I was like, that is so, yeah, it was just so amazing, like just to see. And yeah, that's what I see, all of this meandering. It's gonna eventually come together into something.
And I think too that like things like whether it's cooking or sewing or making paper, writing, all these things kind of tie us back, like you were saying, ancestry and your mom. And I think that we all have some kind of, we each carry some kind of shared wisdom. Like I was watching the American Buffalo, Ken Burns documentary last night, which was like super hard to watch and super depressing, honestly. But a lot of the indigenous people talk about blood memory, and like I've always believed we carry in our DNA, like memory from our ancestry. And so I think a lot of times when you start playing with these kind of older types of crafting and home, hand done things, that sometimes you connect to your ancestry that way without even knowing it, maybe.
Yeah, y'all are making me cry with this abundance and like the abundance of the creative expressions y'all have in your lives, and also like the blending of modalities and the multifacetedness of like all the places your creativity can go. And I'm glad you brought up ancestors, Violetta, and also what you're saying, Christy. I think in this month of October, when the veil is said to be thin, I think it's a nice time to begin or experiment with an ancestor practice, whether it can be very simple, whether you want to kind of connect with a specific ancestor who you may have known in your life or may not have known or only know through stories. And there could be the creation of a little altar that includes a photograph, lighting a candle maybe once a week or for a few days in a row, and just kind of holding either, and like as a white person with a family lineage in the South, I've had a lot of like misgivings about what kind of legacy comes to me through my family, given like the time and the place where they existed. And my attempts to learn more about my ancestors have been slow, and it's something I do have an interest in, but kind of keep pushing off in terms of like time allocation, I guess. But I think I'm going to spend a little time with my grandmother this weekend, and I want to kind of trace those things more over time to the extent I can. But kind of reconnecting or reorienting in that direction has helped me kind of see more nuance in my ancestry. I was kind of like lumping them all together as like crappy white people who probably did terrible things. And I'm sure those ancestors are in my past. And I think a lot about what like reparations in my life can look like. But I've also become more aware of ancestors who had similar social concerns in their day. And I'm kind of getting off track here, but I just wanted to, there's a lot of ways into this, and what you're talking about, Violetta, it's really interesting that like you kind of came back to the inking process, and that kind of opened a door to like an ancestral root, and now these two can have a bridge. And I could see you going to that region and like working with some of those materials and really feeling the presence of your ancestors, or that blood memory even coming more alive inside you. And I think that kind of work can really help us feel more supported in life. Like I believe that our ancestors who, you know, worked really hard and survived a lot of really tough things, like they did all of that so that we could be here. And I think they want us to thrive. And to the extent they still are interested in coming around and helping us out, they probably do. And we can feel that sometimes. And I'm sure sometimes some of you have felt like the assistance of someone, but you know, we can also express gratitude to them. We can kind of express the love that we felt if it's someone that we've known. For a while, I had a little ritual every Wednesday night where my dad's mother, my paternal grandmother, really loved candy, and she would like hide it in different places and like eat it secretly. And after she died, I found a couple of her stashes. But when I was little, she and I both really loved Reese's peanut butter cups. And so I have this memory of her getting like a whole bag of them when I was staying with her. And like, I think no one else was around. So she and I just like pigged out. And so on Wednesday nights, I would like light a candle and get a peanut butter cup and just like talk to her a little bit and say hi and appreciate her. Because I know she has helped me and my dad, especially since her passing. So, you know, like when you don't know how to do that kind of thing, it feels very foreign, or it feels like, what do I even do? Like how, I don't, you know, so you can make it very simple. And, you know, just start really small with a little bit of, it kind of comes back, I think, to that idea of like devotion, or how, what feels like an accessible way to honor, whether it's through something you do, or a creative act, or even sitting and ruminating, connecting. And I welcome others of you to share any practices that you use to do that, if you like, or any hesitations you might have about that.
I don't have a practice, but there's a tattoo that I've been wanting to get. It'd be my first one. And I've been thinking about it a lot more lately. Like I need the funds for it, whatever. I'm not ready, but it's just like, it's interesting. Like I thought of this idea maybe 2 years ago, and like how much is still alive. Anyways, it's an ampersand, basically. That's like business card size. The sign for and to remind me of paradox. And it's going to be made out of botanical elements. And I've thought that like basically I want like ideally, you know, recognizable couple flowers in there. One that's like a hydrangea, one that's a lilac, and one that is a violet, not with color. But anyways, all of these are like plants that I associate with my childhood. The violets, especially, going to pick violets, but the other ones I associate with like each grandparent. Basically, it was a lilac tree, and there was hydrangea plants on the other balcony. And I think I've always just like really noticed plants, and they've always etched into me. So that it's not a practice per se, but I don't know, it's like, yeah, where it's like, oh yeah, they had that plant. And every time I see that plant, you know, it's like a little reminder happens. There was also like a yellow rose, I remember, um, you know, for one of the grandparents. So every time I see a yellow rose, it's kind of like a thing. So yeah, that's been my way sometimes. It doesn't feel like I even chose it. It's more like, yeah, it chose me. I also have like a begonia, which is with pink blooms, the particular one that I also think I remember. And that's kind of why I got it, is because I remember, you know, this plant being there. Yeah, that's one way for me sometimes with plants, because they're still around and alive. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It does sound like a practice. Like when you see these flowers, you think of these familial associations, and it sounds like you want to formalize it a little bit with like a commemorative tattoo. And I think, yeah, flowers make a lot of sense. Like as we go back in time, those are some of the kinds of things that like lasted, or that still, our ancestors might have been part of their daily existence and part of their joy and part of what they cultivated. And that seems like a really beautiful through line to connect with. And I hadn't thought of that. I'm really glad that you shared that. Mary has a question. What if you have a great relationship with your spirituality, but not so much your culture? Do you have any ideas or tips how to better connect to your culture? I guess one question I have there is like, there's like the kind of like white American culture, which is full of appropriation of other cultures, or we sometimes like we have a lineage that traces back to like a region and that culture long ago. Are you okay? I think one way to think about that, and Mary's mentioning an Armenian heritage, and so I think one way to think about it is kind of like, what is the resistance to the culture, or where is the relationship breakdown, could be one kind of way to start. And yeah, maybe getting a little bit curious about, because a culture contains like so many things, right? And cultures are fluid and multifaceted and have also intermingled, and it's a big question. So I think it would kind of depend for you personally, like what do you feel like may have created the lack of connection, and where might be an entry point to bring a little bit of curiosity. Or yeah, someone's suggesting like handicrafts, or since this is a creative space and we're all finding, or many people are finding a connection through some creative outlet, what does the art reveal to you? Or is there an art form from the culture that could bring you into like a different understanding or awareness, or feel like it does connect in some way? Monica's adding that. May I share? Is it okay if I share this, Monica? Okay, yeah. I look Filipina, but I don't speak the language or stay within the culture since I came here at the age of 5 and was told to assimilate ASAP. I don't really have any interest in learning about my culture at this point. Slight frowny face emoji. My sister, on the other hand, is doing it for both of us. So yeah, a lot of inside a colonized world, right? There's a lot of mixed feelings and a lot of disenfranchisement and a lot of disconnection and a lot of erasure and a lot of overriding. And if you have like a more recent immigrant lineage that doesn't sort of assimilate into the dominant culture more obviously, then there's probably a lot of breakdown in terms of like being encouraged to assimilate, or giving up certain practices and things being forgotten. And so it can be really hard to kind of find your way back, especially if, it really depends on what your parents' orientation was and grandparents and all of that. But sometimes looking at just the stories of the disruption, for one thing, and then I'm speaking from a place where I just want to catch myself because like this isn't an experience. Like if you go back far enough, my ancestors definitely are immigrants, right? But I'm not like a second generation or first generation here in the US. So my experience with this has been different than what I'm talking about. So I am not an expert, and I'm not maybe even the best person to speak to this, but I think it does echo a little bit for me, where I had a lot of assumptions about the people that I came from and the practices that they had without having a lot of like facts about it. And so I think wherever we came from, there's something there for us. Like that's how we got here. And so we get to have a lot of choice in terms of how we want to create a connection that makes sense for us or feels good for us, or when it feels right to reclaim and what that could look like. And I see Violetta chiming in, being first generation on both sides. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
So, okay, so I guess I'll say this. So my mom is Mexican. She immigrated here in the 70s. And my dad is Palestinian, and he immigrated here in the 70s. So the natural dye thing, let's use that as my example. My mom was not arts and craftsy at all. She didn't sew, she didn't paint, didn't do any of those things. She'd love to read, but her childhood education stopped at like what we would consider like 7th grade, somewhere around there. And that was it, because she's one of the older children and school, blah, 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 whatever, in Mexico. So a lot of stuff got separated from her childhood to my childhood, right? So like there was no like, I mean, I could say she's like the keeper of knowledge from then, but it wasn't translated back into me, for example, right? But there is something that, like with the natural dye, that is drawing me to it, and I'm seeing, oh, there is a connection here with Mexico, not necessarily with my mother, but there is something there that I personally want to explore. Another thing that I can use as an example from my dad. My dad's still alive. My dad is Palestinian, but one of the things that traditionally gets passed on from family to family through lineage is this embroidery thing about the dress that Palestinian women wear. And I know about these, and I have one, and just one, but because I happen to be the daughter of a man, I didn't get passed on any of those traditions of how to embroider anything. So I went and I got a book to figure this out and see what I want, because now I have a daughter, and I was like, I'm a gatekeeper sort of information, but I can sort of kind of show her that these are some of the things that may or may not interest you, and there's plenty of more other things, right? Food is something else that comes to mind for me. In particular, me, is desserts, because I love sweets. So like flan is one of the things that my mom used to make, and that's the one dessert that she loved, and it was the one dessert that I really enjoy as well. And later realized, oh, there's actually 4 types of flan, which I didn't know about, and I started looking into all these kinds of things. So like I mean, just from a person who is a first generation, I mean, I don't wear a hijab, I don't wear the typical like whatever Middle Eastern, what we would consider Middle Eastern wear, or what I don't read Arabic, but I can understand some of it, like that kind of stuff, right? There are certain things that I can sort of kind of delve into, but not. And so there's even going to be less of that in my daughter's, right? She's second generation here. She's going to lose so, quote unquote, lose so much more of what is making her Palestinian or making her Mexican, because she's growing up here. So I would say that it would just be what you gravitate towards, right? To see whatever it is that your craft or whatever it is that your creativity is speaking to you, follow that. You never know what's on the other side. That might be a connection. Just like you mentioned, Cecily, it's just a bridge, right? It can be a bridge that crosses these 2 different parts. And it's okay if it's not directly like from my mom, right? But it is something that I'm working with. And I think it is something that lineage or that ancestry can like help show you the way a little bit, right? Yeah, so I just wanted to add that. to it. And then also, since we're here on this topic, there's a lot of guilt surrounding me being here in the United States in something that's like, oh, you have freedom, there's sunshine out here, and everything is blue skies and whatever, right? And then you just, I mean, I'm so lucky to be here, but at the same time, very unlucky to see what's going on in the rest of the world. My dad is the only sibling out of more than 10 that made it out of Middle East. So all of the rest of my family's there, like all his sisters are still there, like all of the cousins, my first cousins, are all still there. Like it's just like, what is happening, you know? And so there's this like weird thing that happens when people immigrate and move, and like I don't even know how to explain it. I just know that like sometimes there's just something about it that you may not even want to explore at this point, you know? Like and it's okay to feel both, the mix, and just keep going, like a little bit at a time, right? Day at a time kind of a thing. So yeah.
Thank you, Violetta, for sharing all that experience, and just want to send a lot of love and peace and safety to your father and his siblings and everyone involved. And yeah, there must be a lot of heartache and worry. So just holding
Yeah,
that.
our family happens to be from the West Bank, so that's not what's quote unquote at war at the moment, but it is pretty nerve-wracking nonetheless. And I mean, I visited there plenty of times growing up, and we stopped going as a family in 9/11. Like after that summer was the last summer I was there. So it's, yeah, it's been a really long time, and like it's so strange to not have that access due to whoever's at power and charge. And yeah, it's a strange feeling to have that. And I think that there's quite a few of us here in the United States. I think there's more of us than we think that are dealing with these kinds of feelings of like, oh, what is my identity? Or can I claim this as an identity, right? It's similar to my creativity, right? Do I claim this still as an artist, even though my day job is an engineer? Like, maybe, yeah. I'm still saying, I don't know, can I? But yeah, like slowly but surely, like we're working through that, and getting there.
Another just a small place to start is whether, if you're feeling curious about it, just kind of inviting the universe to help you find a connection or begin that bridge or bring you a connection point that might feel fruitful to investigate, and just kind of plant that seed could be a way perhaps to see where that bridge may go. Yeah, this is big stuff. Ivona.
Yeah, I mean, I have my own heritage stories, which I won't get into, but the idea also regarding ancestors that I found helpful is there is something about connecting to like blood ancestry and culture, but also sometimes what I've heard offered is like everybody's your ancestor, at the same time. So yeah, I don't know, just wanted to put that out there. And I found that um, moving sometimes too, right? Thinking of whoever has passed along um, and is on the other mysterious side, and you find inspiring in some way. If it's not people that you know or connect to or that you're related to by blood, still, like it's still something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Even just like a creative role model or someone who really exemplifies some of the things that you're reaching for and really lived a life that you admire, you can kind of consider them a creative ancestor. Yeah, or like family, friends, or people who really played a big role in your life, even if they weren't kind of chosen family ancestors versus like true genealogy ancestors. And sometimes, many people don't have the privilege of really knowing or being able to trace their family that far back. And I'm still getting to know some of mine, but sometimes I like to just imagine that somewhere in my family line was a weird witch who didn't really want to conform and found like strange ways to be herself in really difficult conditions. And I don't know exactly what that would look like or when that would have happened or what the world would have been at that time, but I'm there, because we have like tens of thousands of ancestors, given where we are in history at this point. So it's like there has to be one of them in there. And I can reach out to her even if I have no idea where or when she was. And I think she would be happy to see any one of us doing our weird witchy, like such an ancestor, right? Would be happy to see any one of us doing our weird witchy things and sending a little magic our way such that she could. So does that feel okay, Mary? Does that give you a little?
Yeah, and I should have phrased it more from the ancestor standpoint, but yeah, I think we've talked about this before, that I really struggle with the concept of legacy. And so I think that there's definitely a connection between that issue and not being able to connect with my ancestor. So I love the idea of a creative ancestor or somebody to look to, and just knowing that somewhere along the way there had to have been someone that was like, I don't want to say like this, but just, out there. So yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate
you even give her like a persona and imagine her fashions.
it. Yeah,
What she
that's
might
true.
have hidden under her skirts. We have about 15 more minutes. Any other shares, questions, conundrums, or needs to support you going forward from here?
When I pulled a card for tonight, I got creativity.
Oh, I love those
Isn't that funny?
rabbits.
It's kind of crazy.
Oh,
Well, that's perfect. That's a good
I know. Always
card to
is.
pull.
the magic is real.
The little tagline says "Seize the day."
I love that. That feels like something our ancestors might tell us too. Let's see, how about I pull a closing card? And so tonight we started with 10 of Wands. Interesting. And now we have 7 of Swords. So one thing I'm noticing here is that they're both carrying a load, right? But one of them's a bit lighter. And in this one, it's kind of like trying to have it all, or like this makes me think of the points you were making, Ivona, about like, let me get it all right. Let me wait till the conditions are perfect. Like, let me have the like allness of whatever this can be. And this one, 7 of Swords to me is about like thinking outside the box and getting the things that we want or need or desire. Or this one for me also really I connect it to the way the world is constructed, like the systems that allocate resources overly much in one direction at the expense of allocating, basically extracting resources from others so that some can be wealthy and most can be kind of struggling with scarcity, right? And so in a world like this, to get some of our needs met or to have access to the things that we truly desire, sometimes we have to go about it in a kind of crafty way. It's making me think of the conversation we're just having about ancestors, where it's like we may not find the direct, obvious connection of like a big, beautiful legacy from these like direct ancestors just a few generations back. And instead, we might have to get a little crafty and creative in terms of finding those connections or kind of worming our way in. You know, and I think too, this is also reminding me a little bit of not doing the straight lines and like sewing the curvy lines and experimenting and making it a little undercover, a little different, a little like below board instead of above board. Yeah, other thoughts about these are both like not the funnest cards to get, right? Like when you get these, you're not like, oh yay. It could be interesting for each of us if you have your decks to like pull what 10 of wands maybe wanting to say to you tonight, and what is 7 of wands wanting to, 7 of swords, excuse me, wanting to say to you tonight.
In your deck, it looks like with the 10, there's holding on to all those things and so much to do. And then the 7 looks like you're just picking and choosing what you want to do. Or, you know, just stealthily moving along joyfully with the few that makes sense or that you want to continue, is what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. This one has a lot more movement and this one is a bit more stuck, right? Weighed down.
It's funny because I don't normally like the 7 of swords, but that one I kind of like.
Yeah, she looks like she's having a bit more fun.
My 7 of swords looks pretty sad. Looks pretty brutal. It's like a raven that's punctured.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not happy.
Is he holding it and like flying away, or is he injured?
They look like they're piercing him.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe he's holding them between his feathers, but that's wishful thinking, I think.
Well, let's see. Is that your 7, Monica? Interesting. Okay, so for 10 of wands, someone got 2 of pentacles, which is kind of like, instead of a big load, you kind of juggle more lightly. And then 7 of swords, someone got queen of swords, which feels like maybe possessing that creative underground approach. We've got an ace of wands and a 2 of cups. That feels nice. For 10 of wands, I got 9 of swords. I was like, wow, okay. But it's true. Carrying all that stuff makes you anxious. Are y'all seeing anything in your cards that feels helpful? Do you have any questions about what you're getting? Does any of this line up with our journey tonight?
For me, when you pulled like the 10 of wands to start off with, I'm like, no, that feels about right. even, collectively, right? Like, I'm sure each one of us was walking in here with a lot, and there's a lot in the collective sphere. Um, and then to have it like creativity still on the other side. And I was kind of delighted pleasantly by my cards. I think the Ace of Wands more than anything. I actually ended up picking it from the edge of the deck, like all the way to, and I'm like, I never have done that so far, but I felt like it. And what I was offering, that idea of like creative and wily, like I think I'm just kind of enjoying that right now. That idea of like relating to Seven of Swords, interesting. Ten of Wands, Ten of Wands. Yeah, I don't know. That felt like, oh, like lightness and possibility, which felt reflected in this. So yeah.
Beautiful. Monica, you got 10 of Wands for the 10 of Wands. I guess that message is clear. It's time to rest. You have submitted your application and lay down. But then with 7 of Swords, you got 4 of Wands, which is so lay down and celebrate. Celebrate your creative, wily startupness.
And I just say I'm building up publishing, an entirely new reimagined publishing technology. So it's not super capitalistic. It's just a way to democratize people's content in a way that they build really beautiful personal brands all in one place. So it's not as crafty, but it is allowing you all to put your stuff and become published in a way that's just brand new. So,
and I think Monica told me it will have a setting where you can protect it from AI vacuuming up all of your human intelligence. So totally celebrate that. Sounds really cool. All right, y'all. Well, how about one more little set of breaths to kind of connect and close. Maybe closing your eyes, resting your back against something supportive if that's available or if that feels good. I invite you to bring a hand to your heart and just connect with first that beating heart and that beautiful breath that brings life to you in every moment, and also that metaphorical heart that contains so much love and wonder for the people in your life, for the things that bring you joy. This heart that helps you connect with others, which is one of the reasons I think we came here to be human, is to be in connection. Just as you hold your heart, give some gratitude to yourself for where you are right now, whether that's coming to this space, for sharing in this space in the way that you did, or the ways that you've been moving and holding yourself over the past weeks and months. And maybe spreading that gratitude to the fullness of your body for making all of these journeys possible, helping you do your work, hug your loved ones, turn your ideas into real things. I just want to share also some gratitude to all of you for being here tonight and for sharing so honestly and beautifully with one another and connecting with each other. It is filling my heart, and I'm just so grateful for that. Maybe think about one of the cards you pulled just a moment ago, something in one of those cards that feels empowering or inspiring or guiding for you. And with your breath, just kind of bring that in, plant it as a seed in your heart or somewhere else inside of you. Kind of sprinkling it with a little curiosity and inviting it to grow in the days and weeks to come. Taking another final deep breath, filling your body with fresh air to its edges and corners and recesses, and releasing anything you're ready to let go with your exhale. That feels complete. You can come back into your present time and space. I hope that after this, you'll stretch your body, give yourself whatever it needs next. And yeah, let's just kind of look into the digital room one last time and give some joy, celebration, gratitude, appreciation. Thank y'all. And I hope to see you in a journaling session soon and another group call next month. Thanks again. Just really proud and excited for everyone. Have a beautiful week. Bye.
Bye, everybody.